And we are live. Good morning with Getting Visible with Heike. We are all about getting in front of the camera, but also getting in front of your own audience and getting rid of that little bit of that confidence that always seems to hold us back. Part of getting in front and getting visible is knowing what to say, what to write. And so today we're going to really talk about artificial intelligence writing options, software that is out there that is amazing and coming in, and we all know it's there, but we sometimes don't quite know how to use it. So I invited my friend Kristina Martin, who's a content creation coach, awesome writer and everything. So say hello, Kristina. So glad to have you.
Nice to see everybody, or not to see them, but to talk to everyone.
Exactly. And I know people will start coming in. We always have a great audience here. So if you are here, let us know you're listening in. We always enjoy having questions come in. So please do that as well. So we can have some lively conversation going for the next 27 minutes. I do like to keep it on time. So let's participate. Kristina, you and I, we've talked about photography. We've talked about writing for your business. And since I work mainly with entrepreneurs and small business owners, I really wanted to have this session today be a bit more around how can we help our audience? What are some tools out there? Give us a little bit of an overview.
So as we talked about before we went live, there are so many AI tools, so many marketing AI tools, writing AI tools, image AI tools, that it's almost impossible to know what's on the market. I hear about new things all the time. And, I think what's most important is just to try things out and see what works for you. You may really love a writing AI tool, one over another. One that I really love right now that I'm loving is Writesonic. And the reason I love it is because you can define your brand voice before you create any content. It allows you to do that. Data privacy and personal privacy is always an issue. So you need to be careful what you upload to these things. But the one thing I like is that it will scour your website. So if you do have a website currently, it will scan it and it will try and determine what your brand voice is. And that's what I really love about this tool. Now, I will say one of its weaknesses is that it's still not great on the content generation. It tends to be a little more awkward than ChatGPT, even though it runs off of GPT-4, and most of the tools that you encounter will. So what I'd like to know is, what tools are you using? Because I could sit here and give you a laundry list of tools that I love, but I think it's more important to know, what have you found and what have you found that works for you? So if you can drop that in the chat, we can take a look at that and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anyone live at this point, but I'm using ChatGPT myself. And I feel like I'm really just dipping my toes in, very carefully asking questions at this point. I have to also say, I am using Evoto, which is actually since I'm a photographer, I am definitely using artificial intelligence to help me retouch images. But there's always this component of, I told you earlier, I'm using 3 different programs right now in order to do the first polish, go through my images. Then I use artificial intelligence to help with some skin retouching and body shaping, maybe just a teeny tiny bit. And then I take it back into another program to polish it off, to give it my look, like what I'm known for, what people know they can get from me every single time. So I've learned to use it. But I've also learned to realize it can't do everything. I don't want it to do everything, because I also want to have my brand voice on my images. So same with ChatGPT, but I'm a little bit more cautious with that because I'm still unsure on how do I even start? What are some of the first things I should know about how to even get into this?
So I think the most important thing is, know thyself. So know what your brand, determine your brand voice before you even try to use any of these tools. And as I said, if you're unsure of what that brand voice is, you can use a tool like Writesonic if you have a website, if you have written content, to try and determine and bring that out. And that is a free tool. It's free to use the brand voice tool. And the rest of the features are paid or premium. With ChatGPT, you can do custom instructions. And I often tell clients, put your brand voice into your custom instructions. Once you know what your core values are, what the essence of your brand is, and you have that defined, if you put that in custom instructions, ChatGPT will take that into consideration in everything that it generates.
So what are some of the things that they're looking for? Obviously, I'm not putting in my colors or my font, or
Right.
it's really more. So what are some of the key things that you're putting in there?
So your personality, your brand traits. So for example, if you're if you're empowering, right?
Yeah.
You want to put that in as a brand trait. My brand voice is empowering, empathetic. That's how I tend to define my brand voice, but also your audience. You want to put in who you are speaking to, because ChatGPT is very good at taking that into consideration. It does have a better understanding of audience. I have used ChatGPT to come up with buyer personas in the past. And there's a lot of really interesting uses. You can use it to determine your brand as well, just by some simple prompts. But as we talked about earlier,
let me just backtrack just a little bit here. You mentioned you can actually create a persona, just like when we're actually going through the entire branding process on who is like my ideal client. You're doing the same thing in ChatGPT.
Right.
I have never have to do that. I have not. I mean, I've started creating my own persona in there, but I didn't realize I can actually create a full avatar in there.
Sure. So if you know that you want to target knowledge professionals, so for example, that's my target audience. So my target audience is creators, authors, artists, bloggers, podcasters, knowledge professionals.
Okay.
I will put that in there, and then I will say, what are some common characteristics of authors, right? What are their pain points? Just to do a little bit of research. Now, you have to go out and do research on your own as well. Don't just rely on ChatGPT to give you everything, because sometimes it is wrong. It can be wrong. And there are biases. So you want to be careful of that as well. But it is a good tool to start with.
Just wanted to quick check in with our audience here. So if you are using any tools, like, we would love to know what you're already using. Maybe let us know. I'm comfortable. I'm uncomfortable. I'm really here to learn some tips on what would make content creation better for you and for your audience. So please feel free to add that to the chat so we can respond and have you part of the conversation. So that is really, really helpful to know, because I feel like, again, like with all of the branding, again, when I work with my clients too, it's I don't want to just, let me just take a pretty picture of you. It's all about how can we create like the full look, but it's always the full look that we want to have for the audience, so that we can address whose ever pain points we're taking those pictures for, right? Sure. So how do we then, so let's back up. What are some of the content creation areas that we can actually use ChatGPT for? I mean, if you are looking at an entrepreneur, I mean, for yourself, for your clients, what are some of the areas that you say, hey, this is a great tool for?
Well, the area most of my clients struggle with is coming up with content for social media.
Okay.
A lot of people feel, and especially, in the LinkedIn environment, we've heard things like, you have to post every day and you have to post at the same time in order to build your audience, but yet you want to remain authentic. But how do you create that volume of content and remain authentic and make sure that you aren't saying what everybody else is saying? So ideation is very important. When you have an idea for something that you want to talk about, write it down, make a list, brainstorm without the use of AI technology first. Then put that into ChatGPT. Instruct it on your voice, right? How you want it to sound. And then you just have to iterate. So what I always tell clients is, you use ChatGPT to refine and not to define. So if you start out
to refine but not define, I think that is so crucial. That's absolutely right there. That's like golden nugget right there for everyone.
Yeah. So really, you don't want to start out with a generic prompt like, write me a blog post on X subject.
Yeah.
You're going to get something very generic, very robotic sounding that is not in your voice. Now, if you want to start there because you just need an idea, that's fine.
Mhm.
But you
Yeah.
need to constantly be going back and forth. It's a conversation. You're having
Mhm.
a conversation. We talked about this earlier before we hopped on the live, is that, I treat ChatGPT like I'm speaking to a human. I thank it. I
Yeah.
praise it. I do that in order to try and get what I want out of it. It's important to realize that it isn't human. It understands like the meanings of emotions, but it can't really display those emotions yet, which is a good
Yet. That's the part right
thing.
there. Yet.
Mhm. So realize it's probably an unlikely substitute for your own voice.
Yeah.
You always have to put that personal touch, that human touch in there.
Yeah.
And that's
So,
how you remain authentic to you.
so I think like one of the things I've liked is just saying, okay, I have this idea. Give me just an outline. So I've done like give me
Mhm.
5 bullet points or give me 5 like different headlines. How can I call something? Like I want to have this message in there, but I need something maybe a little more snappy, a little shorter, a little longer. And then so again, like it's like, okay, what do I like? Give me like 10 titles for a blog post with those content ideas in it. Um, so I feel like again, like it's learning to sit there and say, okay, does this gel with me? What it's actually writing here, and probably out of this. Yesterday, I did something on like a keynote speech I'm working on, and realized, okay, I wanted at least to get sort of some title ideas around the content I was creating, and probably out of the 10 it spit out, I liked one. And I was
Right.
like, okay, let's take this one. Let's break this down again into little snippets of content. What are maybe some of the key points I want to make with this? Let's feed info into that. So that was really interesting. Again, like to see the different versions of it, and then what gels with me, and probably then maybe I should take like maybe my 3 main one and say ask my audience. Let's make a poll here. Which one speaks to you? Would you come to like a speaker session somewhere, webinar, if that was the topic? Like
Sure.
is that one another way maybe to refine so we can keep our audience really part of the conversation?
It absolutely is. And also taking what you've written. So say I'm writing a blog post and I know that I'm going to post this on my website, but I also want to repurpose some of the content. That is an excellent use for ChatGPT. How can I repurpose this content for Instagram, for Facebook, for a LinkedIn audience, and have it give you different iterations for each platform? How could I turn this blog post into a podcast episode? How could I take this and do some click to tweets, right? Although we don't,
Mhm.
I don't know if we're calling them tweets anymore,
Yeah.
but that's another good way to have it pull out those, like you said, nuggets of wisdom,
Mhm.
and then
Yeah.
use those for social posting. So I think it's really important just to have that conversation, even though it sounds silly, you're having a conversation with a robot.
Yeah.
But I think it's a way to be able to create a body of work and a body of content that
Mhm.
can then be mixed and matched for other purposes.
So one of the things like where would you start? I know like to me like website copy is always the most important. That is the home of like where you want all of your audience to come and meet and greet you. This is where the main content should stay. But then obviously blogging is another way because Google definitely uses this for your search engine optimize. I mean, it's a great tool for search engine optimization to be found. Not necessarily that the audience actually reads your blogs, but it's there for Google to see she is an expert on what she does. This is the information your audience is looking for. And this is why we'll show your website closer to the top than someone else's website. So website copy first.
I
Okay.
always start with the website as the source of truth. And, I talk a lot about paid, owned, earned media, shared media. I talk a lot about not building your brand on rented land. So
Mhm.
the website is the property on the web that you
Yeah.
own, right? It's your source of
Yeah.
truth. Ultimately, that is where the information should come from and where you should be driving your social media traffic
Mhm.
back to.
Yeah.
So website copy first, of course, but
Mhm.
the other thing you mentioned SEO. So with SEO, say you're generating titles for a blog post, like you were talking about.
Mhm.
Once you have those titles and you have a couple that you like, search those titles in Google. See
Yeah.
what else is ranking, see who else is creating content, and see what they're saying, and make sure
Mhm.
you're not just regurgitating
Yeah.
somebody else's content. In my world, we call that spun content. So for instance, that is the one way you do not want to use ChatGPT. For you, you would never take another photographer's blog post, upload it to ChatGPT, and then say, can you write me a version of this in my brand voice?
Yeah.
To me, that's unethical
Yeah.
and not something that you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, you're sourcing, you're reading through. I mean, you are definitely getting information from other
Mhm.
people. But then again, like, what is your own spin on all of this? And how can you rewrite it? I mean, write it, not rewrite it, but write it from your own perspective. I think that's the really, but that's again, like, you need to understand your own perspective
You do.
instead of just going out there. It's like, I'll just copy whatever someone else
Mhm.
does. But then that's probably also not going to propel your business in a positive way anyway. So let's be honest with ourselves and say, if I do want to grow as a business and grow in a healthy way, then yes, I need to take ownership of who I am and how I'm actually servicing my clients,
Absolutely.
the expertise that I bring here. But you hit on something right there. Let's maybe just bring that in a little bit. And that, I guess, is plagiarism too, in like when you're copying someone. So what can you say about that?
So you'll often see ChatGPT prompts or prompts for other writing AI that says, write me an article in the style of Elon Musk, for example,
Yeah.
or, whatever content creator or whatever person you may choose. That's a dangerous thing to do, in my opinion, because it's probably not intentional, right? Most plagiarism is not intentional. It's just that
Mhm.
we've heard it somewhere, we've read it, we've seen it somewhere else on the internet, and we don't know where we saw it. So whenever I have ChatGPT create content for me, there's a couple things I do to make sure that I did not intentionally plagiarize anyone.
Mhm.
The first thing is I run it through Grammarly. Grammarly has a plagiarism checker that will give you a percentage of how much of your copy matches somebody else's
Yeah.
thoughts and ideas. I aim for 5%, which is it can be very difficult to get that low.
Yeah.
But, I would say if it's returning percentages like 80%, that's
Mhm.
not good. You
Yeah.
really need to take a look at it and where is it getting the information from. So the nice thing about Grammarly is that it will tell you, if it can find it, it will tell you the source that is
Yeah.
almost identical. Like,
Okay.
this is a 95% match to this source. And looking at that and knowing that, then you can think, okay, I need to rewrite that section, or I need to put it in my own
Mhm.
words. I need to say it differently. The
Yeah.
other tool that I use is I use the Bing chat as well, just because it's pulling from the internet and it will give you sources. It's
Yeah.
not always 100% reliable, but with ChatGPT, if it generates something and I say, oh, where did you get that information?
Yeah.
It can't tell me.
Yeah.
It
I know
doesn't.
that was frustrating. I did some research again on an article and said like, "Oh, give me some sources and stuff." Oh, and it came back with, "Oh, our information is coming from 2021, so it's probably not the most
Right.
recent anyway. So please do your own research on
Mhm.
citing different sources."
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. And sometimes it's wrong. And I've called it out
Mhm.
in the past. And I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. I think I was looking I had read something somewhere and I thought, I can't remember who said this. Maybe ChatGPT knows. So I put the quote into ChatGPT and asked it, who said this? And it
Uh-huh.
gave me somebody other than the person. And then my brain went, no, that's not right. Because you know how you're trying to think of something and you go, I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I knew immediately. And then I thought of it and I said, oh no, actually it was. ChatGPT came back and said, oh yes, you're right.
Interesting. That's crazy.
So sometimes it can be a little cheeky as well.
Yeah. But then it still proves that you have to do your own fact checking. We cannot get away from just assuming now we have these tools. Let's just have them go wild with it and let them do all of the work. Guys, really, if you're listening later, these tools, I mean, AI is an amazing advancement in how we can get content creation done, from photography to writing content, but we are still responsible for what we're putting out there. And we want to do this in an ethical way. And so fact checking, using tools that help us figure out, is it plagiarized? How much of the content I'm using? So I really want to reiterate this as something that you just take ownership when you are creating content, but use those tools though to get you started, to refine, to help you be a little bit more confident in putting content out, because we still need to be out there and our audience does need to have information. So let's talk about confidence though, because that was one thing we also shared, and that's something you and I have so much in common, because our clients, that is probably one of their biggest struggle, is being confident, maybe in front of the camera, of showing up with an image of themselves, or maybe with not knowing what to write. What kind of tips, like what are some starter tips? Because I think I want to make sure that we're walking out of here today with, oh, I can tackle this one today. I can maybe get something started today.
So instilling confidence in others can be a difficult thing to do, because confidence does have to come somewhat from within, right? But I think, my motto has always been, fear is false evidence appearing real. So a lot of times we worry about things, and 90% of those things that we worry about never even happen. What I try to coach my clients on is that you have to remember that nobody else has your experiences, your life experiences, your point of view, your worldview, or your unique perspectives. And yes, it does take some vulnerability to put those things out there, but you will never know until you try. So sometimes you just have to do, I think what Mel Robbins says is go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom,
go.
Do it, right? That's the only way to truly get over it, is just to do it. Yeah. And I know that sounds like, well, no, wait a minute. How do I build up my confidence? The more you do it, the more confident you will become. But you have to start somewhere.
So I have to tell a story with that one, because when I was growing up, my older sister is an amazing storyteller. So when she and I would go to retreat, summer camp or whatever, and we would come home. And so my mom's sitting there waiting for us to share what happened over the last week. And my sister starts telling stories. And I'm sitting there in awe of all the amazing things that apparently we did. I was there. But the way she told the stories was just like mind-blowing, fantastic. And so I've always struggled with writing, with content creation, because she was just so fun to listen to when she just did this. It just came. She was such a good storyteller that I was always incredibly intimidated. So it took my first coach, once I started my business, to help me get out of that comfort zone and saying, Heike, you have your own voice. People don't know your sister's voice. You do not have to emulate your sister's voice. That's not what we're here for. People want to listen to your voice. And I have to. So every time I'm sitting down, that is what I have to keep telling myself over and over again, because the confidence doesn't just come and stay. It still flip-flops back and forth. But I consistently have to keep telling myself, my voice is my voice. And I have clients because they like what I have to say.
Absolutely.
But it's hard sometimes.
It is. It's so difficult. And as you know, I teach freshman composition in college as well, and other writing classes. But it's often hard for beginning writers to really, really get their voice down. So if you need to, start by mimicking somebody you admire. Start out that way. And
Okay.
eventually you will find your own voice.
Yeah.
But you do need to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
obviously, you know, the more sources you can pull from, the more information you have, the less likely you are to unintentionally plagiarize.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's important too. I always think that reading as much as you can is important. So we can't create content if we don't consume it.
Yeah. Oh, that's another golden nugget right there. Can't create content if we don't consume it. So if you're like in your dark little area, you close the doors and you're constantly, oh, I can't look or feel like anyone else, but you're not even understanding what else is out there. Because I think, like, to me, like, again, like reading someone else's blog post, getting someone, I mean, I subscribe to quite a few different newsletters because I want to hear what someone else has to say. Obviously, books is another way, listening to podcasts, being on here with us live today to listen to what we have to say and share is like every time you learn something new. And that will hopefully define a little bit more like where you need to be. Maybe, again, it helps you to redefine, what can I take from this to share with my audience, but then turn it around and make it my own as much as possible. Or cite where it's coming from. Again, there's nothing wrong with bringing in other sources, like especially to do the blogging, and add that extra voice of yes, this is credible. This is information I've pulled from Forbes, or I've added this from an education site or from another brand strategist. So it's like bringing in voices that help, again, say with more confidence, yes, I know what I'm talking about because other people are also sharing the same information, but here's my spin on it.
Absolutely.
So, beautiful. Well, we are at 26 and a half minutes here. So it is like, let's wrap this up. It's been incredibly exciting, Kristina, to get some tidbits, but also I think because we're diving more and more into artificial intelligence, to also do this with confidence, learning which tools are out there. And again, like in the comments, everybody, if you want to share maybe what you are using, like once this is actually going to be permanent on LinkedIn here, we would love to hear where you're at with this, how we can continue to have that conversation, how we continue to help each other grow using these tools and become better entrepreneurs and business owners ourselves, better writers, but all in all, how we can serve our audiences in a much better and more authentic way. Kristina, it's been a pleasure having you on the show with me today.
The pleasure's mine.
Thank you so much. And I cannot wait to see where this will all take us. So we
Absolutely.
will.
And feel free to DM me on LinkedIn if you have questions. I'm happy to answer.
If you want to leave your website down there too for people to connect with you, that's always a great way to make sure. But on the other hand, your info is right there with the chat. So
I will have to pull it up on LinkedIn to actually do that. Afterwards.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, everyone have a wonderful day and we'll chat very soon.
Thank you so much.
So make sure you get out there and get visible. Take care. Bye.
Bye.